Hi, Chris.
Hey, Sam. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
Thanks for making time to be on it. What is one thing you've learned in the past month and how did it change your actions? I'm just going to dive straight in.
Dive right into the question. The past month. Well, the one thing I learned this past month since I've been doing the communication training with Vin and the community, is I really like learning about communication because I feel like that really helps in terms of getting my message out and helping people get their message out as well. And so I didn't have this much connection to communication in the past. I mean, of course, you have to communicate, right? But I never emphasized it in terms of my own journey and my own learning. And now I'm having fun with it, especially with the different mediums, obviously talking to people in person, doing calls like this on Zoom, and then now exploring the different avenues of YouTube and possibly the different social medias in different ways of communicating. So I think it's fun to be able to adapt to those different ways and to use just a baseline knowledge of what effective communication is. So that's been really fun for me, and the journey's been amazing.
Definitely have had quite a similar journey as well in terms of communication and it being my focus. I really resonate with that. So, have you found that just in your professional life, or have you also found that it's changed in your personal life and your personal interactions with people?
I think it's changed all throughout my life, yeah, because now I'm more conscious about it. I'm more aware of how I deliver things. And also, too, on the flip side, I'm aware of how people are coming towards me, like in terms of how they communicate. And I definitely see a difference in just my lens. I see things in a more, I guess, in a more trying to learn the art of communication way. I think that's where the fun is, because before it was more passive or it was just more automatic. The way I spoke is the way I spoke. And so now learning the nuances and executing those nuances and seeing those from different people and different styles, I think now I'm just more of an active user of it versus before I was more of a passive user of it.
Have you noticed it changing other things about yourself or your life? Not just the communication, but actually being so hyper aware of how you're speaking and then how people are responding to it. Have you found that it's been a catalyst for other observations or change?
Most definitely. And that's the direction I'm heading to in terms of the project that I'm doing now, in addition to my work, doing the online courses that I'm creating, for the future me becoming a speaker and doing YouTube and all these different things that I'm doing online. So it's changed that trajectory. In the past, I thought about it and it hasn't really been solidified in my mind. It was more of a hope. Maybe one day I'll do this, maybe one day I'll do that. But now it's pretty solidified and I'm taking actions towards it. So it's becoming more real, right? So before it was very in my head and it hasn't really manifested itself in the real world, in the space that we live in now. But now there's tangible things happening. And so that's nice to see that there are changes in that as well.
I'm really curious then, because you've talked about the changes that you're making and new avenues of interest. What is it that you're looking to build over the next 12 months or hoping to build?
Yeah, so it's shifted a little bit. In the few weeks ago, I was focusing on creating an online course to launch in the next few months out here. But now I'm still doing that, but kind of shifting the priority towards building out the YouTube first. I still have my office. That's what I do full time. And I don't have a plan of leaving that anytime in the immediate future. So my projects now are to create YouTube, building that out, getting the audience there, and getting some communication practice as well while I'm doing it. And at the same time, building out the courses that I'm also planning to launch. And then in the middle to farther future, before I end my time with my office, is to build up the speaking career that I've been wanting to do.
Okay. We actually haven't discussed what it is that you do. For people who don't know watching this, I have an idea of what it is you do. Do you want to share what is it that you do day to day in your space?
Yeah, so day to day, I have my own office and I'm an acupuncturist. So I'm a trained acupuncturist, herbologist, and Chinese medicine practitioner. So I treat people in my office with different ailments. A lot of it is in pain management. That's the big chunk of the people that I see. But it really varies. Chinese medicine, as some of your viewers may know, it's an old system that's been there as a medical system that treats all sorts of conditions. And I do that. And whatever comes into my office, I'll definitely treat. I haven't turned anyone out yet. So it's been fun.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
And what brought you to this type of work? I mean, why are you doing this type of work?
So it's interesting. It's from a personal injury. Speaking of back pain, so I hurt my back some time ago. My original plan was to actually go to school to be a physical therapist. And going through that trajectory, I end up hurting myself in the gym doing some deadlifting. 20 years old, thinking you're invincible, that you can lift everything heavy. It was not the case for me, so I hurt my back. And in the back of my mind, I just had an interest in acupuncture, even though I didn't really know anyone that's done it, or I've never had direct experience with it. But I always had an interest in the arts of acupuncture and Chinese medicine because of my background in some martial arts. And so I found that, oddly enough, I found it as an opportunity to actually get treatment when I hurt my back. I couldn't stand straight. I had to get a friend of mine to bring me to this clinic, and I was just amazed about how quickly my range of motion. I walked into the office, bent over almost 90 degrees, and within a few needles in my hand, moments later, I was able to stand straight and pretty much walking out of this office standing straight. The pain had to be resolved within several treatments for sure, but the immediate change of range of motion was what sold me.
Have you found that back issues, is it something that you see quite a bit?
Yeah, back pain is probably the most common thing that I'll see. Back pain and headaches and neck pain. The top 3 conditions that I'll see.
You've been running your practice for how long? Was it 3 years?
I'm going on my 11th year now. I used to live in California, and then this clinic that I opened 3 years ago.
Have you found that in different clinics there's different injuries that are coming through, or is it pretty much the same across wherever you work?
As far as injuries, they're pretty much the same. You can only injure so much of the body, you know.
No.
There's only so many body parts to really injure.
Exactly. I'm just curious whether or not it was just working as an acupuncturist that the people who tend to come to you are different to, say, the physio that I worked at. But it was a lot of back pain and a lot of headaches and a lot of neck as well and shoulder.
Right. Because of the context of acupuncture, they can open other things, right? So if they're there for back pain, we'll open the conversation of their health in general. So although they're being seen for back pain, they might have other things like GI issues or allergies or just mental, emotional stuff. We'll address everything while they're there, considering that their main thing was the back, but we'll definitely look at the body as a whole. It's hard to separate that, really.
Now that you are a veteran of this work, how you practice and how you approach the work, how has it changed over the years for you? And how do you think it will keep changing?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because the longer I'm in the field, the more and more I'm realizing that a lot of the underlying things that people struggle with, it's like a mental, emotional, spiritual thing that comes about. Because those are the deeper layers that if there's something dysfunctional in those areas, it manifests physically in the physical body. So I'm always underlyingly treating a mental, emotional aspect, even if they don't even tell me anything is wrong. I'll always start with that as my foundation and my baseline as a treatment, because I know that if I do that, the physical treatment will just be much better.
How have you trained or supported yourself in that? Was that part of the training for acupuncture?
Yeah. The system itself, people refer to it as a mind, body, spirit kind of system. And there really isn't a separation in terms of the different things. Back pain could be back pain, but it could be something related to the kidney and not necessarily the kidney organ. In Chinese medicine, there's different ways of viewing things, different lenses. There's also an emotional component to it. So there's something wrong with your back and something wrong with your kidney. Possibly you have some emotional predisposition to fear. You might be fearful of something. There's all these different links that you can tease out because of this one, I guess what you said as a pattern that you'll find as you treat someone.
Can you step through an example of someone who walked in with, say, back pain, but then it was something else, and what was the underlying emotional or mental thing that you needed to address?
That's actually a common one where the back pain turns into not necessarily a kidney directly, but we'll assess it as an emotional disturbance of fear. And sometimes it's just fear of a relationship or a fear of losing their job. And that's what started the disruption. And it just happens to manifest as back pain. But there are situations where it's purely mechanical. They hurt their back because they did something wrong with it, right? So you have to really try to see what's really going on, because sometimes if it's purely mechanical and they just had an accident, then you can't overly assume that they have fear issues. So that's where the diagnostics and talking to the patient and seeing what their history is. The woman I'm thinking about right now is a woman in her 60s. She did come in for some back pain and possibly sciatica, if people are familiar with that condition. At first, she thought she just hurt herself and she just needed some mechanical treatment through acupuncture. But come to find out, digging deeper and things like that, we started talking about her history and her life, and she started talking about her husband, how she was fearful that her husband was in bad health, and so she was fearful she might lose him. And so she ended up becoming a caretaker for this man. And sure, there were some mechanical issues because she was helping him transfer from the bed to the chair. There was some of that, but also the underlying fear of losing her loved one. That was very difficult for her, and we were able to assess that during the treatment. And as she progressed with everything, always address an underlying mental, emotional component. And I'm not a therapist, so I don't necessarily do talk therapy, but I'll navigate this with her and give her some comfort in this process. And so we were able to get her out of that pain, and she's still a caretaker for her husband, but she's able to navigate that easier now, especially because she no longer has the back pain. It's easier for her to navigate her relationship with her husband and her being the caregiver of her husband.
I've seen that at the clinic, but also in my personal life, where people are caregivers of some kind, and the ones who feel burdened by it, not being able to communicate how they're feeling, what their fears are, it really does come out in the back. I've seen it a lot. Parents who are now single parents for whatever reason, and their back gives out. And yes, they've been in a difficult job where they're using their body. But what we saw consistently was that there was yet another layer, emotional or a mental component that exacerbated the problem. I found that as well for me personally. I worked in a job where I was sitting at a desk for lots of hours focusing. And so my posture wasn't great, but it was actually when I went through some really emotional difficulties, quite traumatic, death of a friend, plus a breakup, plus other things that happened. And suddenly the pain in my shoulders and my back was excruciating. And I realized now in retrospect that I felt a huge weight on my shoulders of all the responsibility, and just, I think, the inability to then process and figure out what was going on, and also the emotions. I just suppressed them, and the burden that I felt just weighed on me. And I actually found that my posture changed. So my shoulders caved in and my entire body changed. And it's taken years to get it back. It's still not completely back because I'd spent so many years in this very hunched position. And where I noticed it was actually in my sport. I was figure skating at the time, and my flexibility it nosedived, and I couldn't get into certain positions anymore, and I couldn't even stretch properly. And now in retrospect, after learning so much about the body and how it's all linked with the mental and the emotional state, I can now see this is why physically I deteriorated. It's because emotionally and mentally I did not do first aid, and I didn't then process what went on, and I didn't heal from it as well. So my body, that's where it all showed up.
Yeah, it's interesting because even people that aren't clinicians, it's almost common sense. Like if someone is hunched over and body is forward, right? It's a very protective kind of posture, right? They're guarding and protecting something, and what you have to tease out when you're with a patient. And then you contrast that with someone who has very good posture and stands tall, and you can tell just from how they stand that they're confident, that they have less issues in their life. The posture shows you, and how people hold their bodies.
Yeah, for sure. When was the last fork in the road for you? And which path did you take and why?
The last fork in the road was me moving to where I am now. I used to live in California, and I was working in an office there, and now I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. And there was that fork in the road where I had to make the decision whether I wanted to stay at the old company or I could open my own practice. Back there, I was an employee, and I was kind of burned out about how they were running the practice. But I've always had wanting to open my own office, wanting to open my own business. And so that was pretty much a pretty big fork because I wasn't sure if I was going to do it or not. And it's a big move because it's a big decision, but I'm happy I did it. That was the biggest fork. I had to travel, I think it's about 2,000 miles, sold my house in California, bought my house blind here in Tennessee. It was a time where the market was so hot that if you were too late in making your bid in for an offer, that you might lose whatever the house you're wanting. Basically, I worked with an agent and he showed me the house through FaceTime. I said, I want the house, and bought it blind. So it was a pretty crazy time.
Oh
So when I got to
gosh.
Tennessee, yeah, that was the first time I stepped into the house that I bought when I first basically moved all my stuff from California to Tennessee.
Was the house what you expected?
It was the one thing that really threw me off, and it's funny that you asked that because it drove me crazy. The house that I bought, I should have researched it, and I don't know why the agent didn't tell me, is close to a railroad track. So there's a train that goes through. And so for the first 6 months, I couldn't sleep because I guess by law, they'd have to honk their horn every time they cross through the crossroad. And this could happen at 1 o'clock in the morning. This could happen at
Oh,
3 o'clock in the morning. So the train itself going through the tracks weren't a problem. It was actually kind of a soothing white noise sound. But the fact that they had to honk their horn at odd hours of the night drove me crazy for the first 6 months. I thought I was going to have to sell the house. I said, this is a disaster. I don't know why I did this. It ended up working out. It becomes background noise. So for me now, I got used to it.
why such a big move, if it's okay to ask? What
Yeah.
was why?
I just wanted a change of pace. California tends to be a little more, I guess, intense is a good word to say.
Mm.
The hustle is hard and everything is just go, go, go. I lived in Orange County, which is close to Los Angeles. There's a lot of busyness. I would be stuck in traffic for 3 hours in a day, an hour and a half one way, an hour and a half coming back. The lifestyle was just draining. I just wanted a different pace of life. And being in the South here in the United States, it tends to be a different pace. And people tend to talk slower. Things are a little bit slower in terms of how people function. I was ready for something different. And yeah, that's what I made the decision. What really got me interested in the state is a good friend of mine who's actually a physical therapist. He now lives in California, but grew up here in Tennessee. He always talked about great things about Tennessee. And I said, hey, it sounds like a good place to be. And I just went for it.
No research, you hadn't done a reconnaissance trip.
Well, I did one reconnaissance a few months before I decided to move, just so I can say that I've actually did something.
Okay.
But it was pretty much just me going for a weekend and really just blasting through the area. Not too much reconnaissance, really. And then a few months after that, I pretty much purchased the house, sold my house, and then moved out here. So it was quite the experience.
How did that move impact you as a person, plus then the trajectory you're on? Because no support network, different pace, different environment, no network at all. How have you managed? What has it changed in you?
Well, it was almost a test for my willpower, and just it tests me in terms of my capacity, because no support system. I opened an office in uptown. I didn't know the town at all where I lived in. And so it was really a test to see how far I can take it with all these different unknowns. And as a person, I like doing that kind of thing. I like the challenge of different things. So it's fun and scary at the same time. That's when I know I'm doing something right.
Like a roller coaster.
Like a roller coaster, yeah. It kept me going because there was smaller margins of error because I didn't have assistance and I didn't have help. And so I had to build a network here with people I have yet to meet, and it helped me connect with a community that I didn't know before. And it just made me more diverse and stronger and a more resilient person to be able to withstand all these different unknowns. Because had I stayed in California, everything would have been known. I know people, I know the location. Here, when I got here, my house was unknown, my office was unknown. I had to look for an office. I had to figure out the people around me, how they can help me and how I can help the community. So there were all these different variables that just had to be uncovered as I got here.
It's such a big move and it sounds so scary. I know people do it all the time, but to do it in such just I'm going and we'll
Yeah.
see what happens.
That's why people
Okay.
people thought I was crazy.
Yeah, look, I wouldn't say
Yeah.
crazy, but brave, definitely bold. How much do you think being in such a different place has changed you and your trajectory? Do you think you'd still be on the same path as you are on now if you had stayed?
No, because it was just like anything else, it was a safe path. So I wouldn't have challenged myself. And I think that's probably one of the things too. I felt like I was getting complacent, right? I had a sense that if I wanted to grow as a person, if I wanted to grow professionally, I had to change things up. And had I stayed in California, I think everything, I mean, it would have been fine. Like everything would have been great. But there'd be a sense of complacency. And I felt that while I was there. I felt like I wasn't pushing myself hard enough because everything was so comfortable. When I got here, it wasn't comfortable. I had to figure things out. And the other aspect of it is in California, I was an employee. That was another layer of comfort. I was just receiving a paycheck. I showed up at work and I did my work and it was done. Here, I have my own business. So that's another layer of complication or another layer of a challenge that I'm dealing with. It forces me to push through and make myself better in all these different avenues that I wouldn't have been exploring had I stayed in California.
How was it for you being in such a different environment? Okay, definitely it would have been different for you. How was it for the place that you've moved to, having this person come in from California and open up a business? What was the response like?
There's a lot. Nashville, where I live in Nashville. So Nashville's the bigger city. And where my office is, it's not exactly in Nashville. It's about 30 minutes west of Nashville in a town called Hendersonville. It's quite the contrast because it's a bigger city. It gets a lot of transplants. Lots of Californians come here. People from New York come here. People are used to that in the city of Nashville. But where I chose to give myself even more of a challenge, I chose not to open my office in Nashville. I went to a town where acupuncture was not known. And the reason I chose that town is because I'm the only acupuncturist there. I was essentially first to market from a business perspective. Wouldn't have any competition, wouldn't have anyone stepping on my toes. And that was almost a strategic decision I made. But the challenge with that is people don't really know what acupuncture is, generally speaking. So you're exposing a demographic and a community with a service that they're not really familiar with or sometimes haven't even heard of. It's a double-edged sword. Sure, I'm the first person there and I can capture the market. But the second aspect of that is I'd have to basically educate the community on what this is, what is acupuncture, and how it could help them. And there's two sides of that coin.
It's the bell curve where you've got the innovators. So the first, 2%, they just get it. And so they'll come to you, they go, oh yeah, we need something. And you can't capture any more of the market until you've had those people already using
you
the
get the
product.
early adopters, right? And then you reach the threshold.
Yeah.
The tipping point. Yep.
Yeah. There's the innovators and the early adopters, the early majority, the late majority, and then the stragglers who
The stragglers, yeah.
they won't ever come. It's fine. You don't need them.
Right. Yeah. It's been a fun journey. And I like the word journey because it really is a journey. You're trying new things, experimenting with new ways of doing things. That's been fun. I've really enjoyed it. It comes with its challenges, but I think at the end, it's all worth it. When I first got here, I didn't know anyone. I didn't know anything about the town. And so that was the first, I don't want to call it roadblock, but the first challenge. And then when my office was open, the second challenge is what I mentioned, is people just didn't know what acupuncture was. And there was a second level of trying to educate the community about what it is, which I didn't have a problem when I was in California. Everyone knew. It's like saying I'm going to a dentist. Everyone knew what an acupuncturist is. It's not even a question of can that help me or not. In this new place, that's the challenge. They don't know how I can help them.
How then did you communicate to the community? How did you get out the information and the message? How did you connect with people?
Oh, lots of door knocking. And I did a
Really?
lot of, boots on the ground. I went to doctors' offices, introduced myself, gave them my pamphlet, gave them my information. I attended festivals and activities during the summertime. I had my booth, so talked about what acupuncture can do. So there was just a lot of that first marketing to be able to at least be visible, firstly to be visible, and secondly to at least have a sense of who my audience is at that time. And over time, I've developed a pool of people, so now I get referrals. I don't necessarily have to rely on doing too much legwork in terms of getting newer people in. And the beginning was tough because it was a lot of hours just knocking on doors, being that person who's almost like a salesperson to introduce a new product, basically, a new service.
How long before you really started to see people understand what you did enough to walk through the door?
Luckily, not long. I did that for, I'd say, 4 months. The way it worked out was the timing was nice because I opened my doors in April. By the time that was around, there were all these activity that was going around town. The big one that I went to was the 4th of July festival. Basically, everyone in town gets together, does fireworks at the end. There's a lot of balloons for the kids and food for people to go around with. It was just a good time to be around people and to interact with the community. And so I had my assistant with me. We just hung out, and I think we were out there for about 4 hours, just having a good time, really. And the goal was to meet people. Of course, you want people to come into your office, but we were bringing the energy that we were there to have fun and to meet people. And by the time we got back to the office that Monday, we had some calls. So it was a great experience.
Just from just being present and being seen at the festival.
Yes, because people have some curiosity if they've heard of acupuncture, but they just don't know what it is. I think to be able to meet them at this festival, put together the face to the name, and to talk to the person that's actually doing the service for them, definitely helped bridge that trust and the confidence versus if I just wasn't there. To be physically seen, to be physically be there to talk to people was a good way to earn people's trust.
Definitely the trust and being visible, because it doesn't matter what you're offering. If they don't know the face, the physical form, who can they trust? Right.
Yeah.
And when they converse,
We were giving out some balloons for kids, so that was also good.
you know what? I'd be there if I had got a balloon. Totally. Now that you are 3 years mature in your clinic, how are you finding then the reception within the community? How is it different from when you first arrived?
It's been great. Now more people are coming in and people are starting to know the office. And it's because the word's been coming out, it's becoming what it's been like in California, where people will come in because they know I can help them. They have this condition. They no longer second thought. Of course, everyone's a little bit different, but there's a bigger percentage now that come in and say, hey, I know Cris can help me, so let me give his office a call and get a treatment. That's been nice to see. I don't have to do too much, hey, this is what I can help you with kind of thing. There's still some of that happening because you're constantly having to educate the public. And the nice thing about it is now they're realizing that there's options. Because before they would go to the doctor and a chiropractor, and those are the only options. And so now having the service in the town where it didn't exist before, and knowing that they can trust me in helping them with their condition, that's nice to see. Because they come in the office and they tell me that all the time. They're like, I'm glad you're here. Finally, someone is here to help me with this. It's been nice in that sense.
Oh, okay. They're actually coming already with the intent of getting better and already trusting that this practice or this mode is going to be effective.
Yeah.
Because I find it actually makes a huge difference. If someone already comes in thinking that it's going to help, then it is going to help more likely. What's your why? Why are you doing this?
The big why really is what I've seen, and then I think I mentioned this earlier, with my patients in the clinic is a lot of the conditions stem from people that aren't clear of what they want out of life, essentially. So there's this mental struggle and emotional struggle. And that underlying struggle is what causes a lot of physical symptoms. I'll have these conversations in a sense of purpose, or do they have their why in their life? And it may sound simple, but those things really make a big difference in a person's health and in a person's life. Because if they don't have that, all these physical symptoms could be chronic and keep coming back. A good example of this is I have a patient who, older gentleman, he is actually retired and super successful, sold multiple businesses, but he is having a lot of pain. And it's like almost random pains that have no physical links, and it keeps traveling all over his body. At first, I would treat the pain, and then we started talking about the different things of his life. And it tells me that he doesn't know what he wants to do. He calls it in his life, and he's an older gentleman. He tells me that he doesn't have really a sense of purpose, that he is kind of wandering, despite the fact that he's been successful in the business aspect of things.
And what drove him to be that motivated to build businesses and sell? And then what did he realize at the other end of all the treatments? What was that underlying emotional pattern or the thought pattern that helped treat him?
Yeah, he came from a place where it was a place of lack. He grew up poor, essentially, in his words. And so he felt like he had to build something big and large, and he didn't want to be financially handicapped, essentially. And he did. He managed to be super successful financially. But then he realized along that path, that journey, that it wasn't really fulfilling him. It fulfilled him in a way that he's no longer financially handicapped, but he still was searching. And by the time he got to my office, he definitely was having a lot of issues. All these different things were manifesting as pain and other things in his body. And by the time we did treatments, had this discussion with him, he was able to realize what he really wanted to do, and he wants to mentor people. He's building up to that. I still see him occasionally for some maintenance work, but he's now building up a mentorship program where he can mentor younger business people in his industry. He's in manufacturing, to be able to guide them through that process. And so that's where he finds his passion now, his joy, is through mentorship and a sense of meaning of his life. I think back before he had that realization, he was coming from a place of fear because he was afraid that he didn't have money as a younger person. And his drive was to basically not be poor. That was the intention. But when something clicked in his head, a shift happened in his mind, and then he realized I shouldn't be functioning from this fear of not having money, but from a place where I can help someone in the capacity that he can. And he definitely has that capacity to be able to do it. I think it's a mental shift where you're coming from, where you're functioning from. It's definitely made me appreciate what I do and want to do more, giving back more. And also, too, about how I go about doing it. A lot of the methods that I use are based in Chinese medicine. And so I bring that up whenever I treat someone. And those frameworks and those systems I apply to my life, and I find it to be really useful. To be able to do that application for myself is a great thing to see. And not only am I using it for patients, I'm using it for myself too, and everything works out fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do find that the more I work with people, coaching and helping and teaching, that actually I probably learn the most out of that interaction. And I find that then when I'm saying something to someone I'm coaching, I'm also saying it back to myself. If I'm asking the question, why did you do that? Why was that so hard? I'm also asking myself the same question and then going through the process as they're processing in front of me or between sessions. I find I'm also going through that process, and I'm always developing and changing and progressing whilst the people I coach do as well. And I'm constantly moving and hopefully becoming more of who I really want to be. And I find that the faster and the better I progress, the people I coach and mentor, they move at that pace as well, or more likely to move. And I'm not sure if that carries across to a clinic though, because they're coming for a certain condition, whereas coaching is a little more broad.
The patients are also my teachers because you'll learn from their experiences, and then you'll learn how to apply your techniques and methods in what they're going through. And if you see a similar thing, you can always reapply what you've done that's been successful. And so I think like what you said, over time you build your clinician muscle or your coaching muscle to be able to help more and more people along the way.
Is there anything else that you really like to share about your journey, or anything else that you're looking forward to?
It's the clinic that I have right now. I have my YouTube channel that I'm building out, the courses, and I'm really looking forward to the speaking, because keynote speaker is one of those things that I never really thought that I would actually do. It was a pipe dream in my mind, and that's something I'm super excited about, and I'm building up to that. I want to help people go through the process of finding their voice, finding their inner purpose, and I'll be using the framework of Chinese medicine to be able to help people navigate through that.